Time passed quickly. After escaping city life for a short time, he began to wander again in the forests and mountains, where there was no one around. Ayla was born in the fall and had just had a birthday. Nobody had congratulated her. He would have been 13 based on his physical age, but would be older if it included his memories of his previous life. Well done. Cloud congratulated Ayla, who looked him straight in the face. I always saw the big scar on his right side. He felt strange because he had a scar that he didn't have in his previous life. Of all the things that changed when going back in time, this was the most visible. She could explain it as evidence that she has traveled back in time and that something has changed dramatically. Miss? While Ayla simply looked at his face without reacting to his praise, Cloud asked curiously. Hey? Thanks for the compliment. Ayla finally woke up from her thoughts and smiled shyly, her cheeks flushed. Lately, he had shown tremendous growth, for which he had always received praise. It was nonsense. Both Cloud and Byron. He had already reached the highest level they wanted, but they didn't know that he was hiding it and pretending that his skills were improving little by little. I was just happy. He simply said, well done. He said it bluntly, but she knew it. Cloud was surprised at the speed with which his skills improved. It was thanks to having listened to his conversation with Byron several times. People said, I can only say that he is a real genius. They praised it as a skill from heaven. They praise Byron behind his back, but in front of him, he seems oblivious to everything. Then I'll leave it at that for today, miss. Already? Although there is still a lot of time left in training, when she was told it was over, Ayla blinked blankly. Yeah. The remaining time. It is free time. I have permission from the teacher, so you can stay comfortably. Leisure. When she learned that even Byron had given her permission, her jaw dropped. It was the first time he had free time in his life, but he didn't know what to do. Since he would always be under observation, he would not be able to live a completely free life. She was completely unaccustomed to the unexpected amount of time she had to herself. What do I have to do? She was deep in thought. What he wanted was to sneak into Byron's room and eavesdrop on his conversations or get information. Wasn't this something that couldn't be done on a bright day like this? After joining the Duke's household, he sometimes had the luxury of reading books in his free time. There were no books here that a child would be interested in reading, other than scary books involving murder. Walk. Can I? As long as it doesn't go too far, it's fine. In response to his question, Cloud nodded. Being able to move freely was truly incredible. Of course, she wasn't alone. Cloud had assigned one of his subordinates to him. I didn't know if it was to protect her or to keep an eye on her. Although the faithful knight silently followed her from afar, she felt strange walking freely through the fortress. Because he never achieved that freedom in his previous life. Was skill the problem? In your past life, if you had learned everything at once like now, would you have had so much free time? What's the point of thinking like that now? Ayla looked at the landscape, trying to push away the thoughts that were tormenting her. Now that autumn had arrived, the scenery was stunning. Trees with crimson and yellow leaves covered the entire hardwood forest. Countless autumn flowers covered the fields. But it's nice. As the fall progressed, Ayla's worries also deepened. It was because winter would come soon. When winter comes, what should I really do? For a time, he roamed freely every night, gathering information. Now she could hide because she managed to hide by climbing a tree with thick leaves. It was also less visible when wearing dark clothing on a dark night. But when winter came, things would change. All the leaves would fall and the bare tree would not be able to hide his body. Plus, when the snow piled up, the black clothing really stood out. Since I worked outdoors in the dust all day, I didn't wear brightly colored sports clothes. However, the winter in the Palace Empire was too cold to walk around wearing only thin white pajamas. And leaving traces was also a problem. No matter how silently and lightly she walked, she couldn't help but leave footprints in the accumulated snow. It would be fortunate if the snow continued to fall and erase their tracks, but it was also a problem if traces of their adventures remained on the snow. We cannot prevent winter from coming. No matter how much he went against the laws of nature and returned to the past, he couldn't stop the passage of time. He sighed as he watched the red dragonfly flying among the pink cosmos. It was when Ayla returned to the fortress after finishing her walk. There was a loud crash and something fell in front of her. It was a silver cup. Surprised, she looked around. There was a broken window on the second floor. That's Byron's room? The noise didn't stop there. Something was constantly breaking and loud bangs were constantly heard. What was happening? Byron tended to be violent and irrational when angry, but that didn't happen very often. But she thought that things like that were becoming more frequent lately. Ayla promised herself she would avoid the window in case something else flew in. That night, she would find out why Byron was so angry. How else could I convey this? It was right after Ayla went for a walk. Cloud discovered that a message had arrived and quickly reviewed the information. After checking the contents, he became meditative and froze in place for a moment. This was because it was very difficult to convey the information to Byron as it was hurriedly transmitted via magical telegram. Byron's nephew, now named Crown Prince. After his failed attempt to assassinate Winfred, he expected that he would be severely reprimanded when he returned after a few days. After that, Byron treated Cloud so well that it gave him goosebumps. He never got angry or threw things at her. Furthermore, even Ayla's performance had been very satisfactory lately. Byron seemed to be in a better mood than he had ever been in the years she had seen him. But if he told her this, Cloud was worried that the wound around his eye, which had barely healed, would flare up again. This was because it was news and there was no way Byron wouldn't throw things in the trash. I can't help but tell you. It was really embarrassing. To the point that he inadvertently thought it would be better to have someone else check the messenger. However, the only one who could handle that level of information was Capella. All right. I'm better than sister-in-law. Thinking like this, Cloud took a firm step and found Byron. And just as I expected. What did you just say? Byron was terribly angry. Lady Helling. She says she is pregnant. Cloud closed his eyes tightly after once again giving her news that would make Byron uncomfortable. The drink that Byron had in his hand would surely fly towards him. However, the glass did not fly away and suddenly a loud clinking sound was heard. Cloud opened his eyes, surprised, and realized that the glass Byron had thrown broke the window and went flying, not because of him. It didn't stop there. Unable to contain his fury, Byron dragged the items off the desk with his arms and threw them to the floor. Byron had been expressing his anger for a while and quickly walked towards Cloud. When he silently extended his hand, Cloud realized that he was asking for the letter the messenger had given him and politely placed the letter in Byron's hand. After reviewing the letter, Byron seemed unable to contain his anger, crumpled it and threw it in the corner of the room. Then, with a wave of his hand, he ordered Cloud to congratulate him. Cloud unconsciously sighed in relief as he left Byron's room. I was so nervous I couldn't even breathe properly. I guess I'll have to tell other people today too. Until Byron calls first, don't go near his room. He shook his head and walked down the stairs. Byron was left alone and picked up the bottle of alcohol that was on his desk. The glass he had thrown had already flown out the window, so he had no choice but to drink the bottle. But no matter how much he drank, the fire that burned in his heart would not go out. Her constitution made it difficult for her to have children. They said Ayla would be his first and his last. Suddenly, she became very angry when she found out that she was going to have another child. He couldn't believe it, so he opened the letter he had thrown in the corner and read it again. No matter how much he looked through it, there was no way the content he had already read would change, and Byron, once again filled with anger, tore up the letter and burned it. He knew it in his head. Roderick and Ophelia were officially married. Additionally, they had a daughter named Ayla. But his heart couldn't accept it. The fact that another man hugged Ophelia. Oh, that traitor Roderick. The bastard was hugging Ophelia, that was for sure. The fact that his beloved Ophelia was pregnant once again with that man's child. He didn't want to accept it. Byron threw the bottle of alcohol that was at the bottom. The bottle hit the stone wall and shattered. It seemed that love had hurt his heart. Ophelia. Oh, my Ophelia, why? Because? He collapsed on the bed. Ophelia screamed, but it was a call that couldn't reach her inventor. After fighting the pain for a while, he sighed. And yet, I love you, Ophelia. He loved her so much that different men had hugged her so many times. Byron confessed his desperate love. It was enough to kill the newborn child. Roderick would die at the hands of his daughter. He just had to kill his own younger brother at the hands of Ayla. And he would place Ophelia, who had been left alone, next to Byron. Thinking of the beautiful Ophelia, who would one day wear the crown of the empress, Byron went to sleep.